Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're plunging into the really dynamic world of U.S. travel and tourism. We've got a fascinating set of sources you shared with us.
Yeah, quite a mix. We're looking at that NPR piece on revenge travel, an article from Travel and Tour World about where domestic tourism is really taking off in 2025.
Right, and also the big BEA report, the U.S. Travel and Tourism Satellite Account, covering 2018 to 2023.
Plus that Reddit thread discussing spending on travel and entertainment, which was pretty lively.
Definitely. And finally, the American Hotel and Lodging Associations, the AHLA's 2025 State of the Industry Report.
So our goal here in this deep dive is really to try and connect the dots,
Yeah.
between all these different viewpoints and get a better handle on what's happening now and maybe what's coming next for travel in the U.S.
And it's interesting because right away you see this kind of tension almost.
Exactly. You've got to talk about economic pressure, rising costs, this funflation term.
Yeah, funflation, I like that.
But then, at the same time, the data, the projections, they're showing a real surge in travel.
So yeah, unpacking that complexity is what we're aiming for today. Give you a clearer picture.
Okay, so where should we start? Maybe with where the growth is actually happening.
Good idea. That Travel and Tour World article from May this year, it pinpoints 5 states that are really leading the pack for domestic tourism: Florida, California, New York, Texas, and Colorado.
Right. And the article suggests, a few key reasons why these states are doing so well. It seems to be a combination of things.
Like what?
Well, rich cultural experiences, for one. Also, lots of options for nature escapes, getting outdoors. And importantly, they mention enhanced safety measures, or at least the perception of safety.
Oh, that makes sense. People want adventure, but they also want to feel secure, especially now.
Absolutely. Feeling safe seems like a really big driver in destination choice these days.
And it feels like what travelers want from a trip is changing too, doesn't it? The article mentions more demand for accessible, immersive experiences.
And safe environments, yeah. It's not just about seeing the sights anymore, is it?
No, it seems people want to connect more deeply with the place. Have authentic experiences, engage with local culture.
Precisely. And they want it to feel, well, easy and secure.
Mhm.
This also seems to be influencing where they stay.
So hotels versus vacation rentals.
Yeah. Hotels are still dominant, apparently.
Mhm.
58% prefer them, probably for the reliable service, amenities, that sort of thing.
Okay.
But vacation rentals are definitely popular, almost 25%.
Mhm.
People likely value the privacy, maybe more space, flexibility.
That tracks. And the article gave some interesting stats for 2025 planning, like 53% are staying domestic.
Right. And a big chunk, 71%, are booking more than 2 months out.
Wow, planning ahead.
Seems like it. Average group size is small, just 2.4 people, and the average trip length, about a week and a half.
So longer domestic trips planned well in advance.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it suggests maybe a more deliberate approach to travel. Picking early could be about getting deals or just securing what you want.
Or maybe it just reflects that desire to really explore within the U.S., maybe for convenience, or, again, that feeling of safety.
Could be a mix of all those things.
Okay, let's switch gears a bit. Let's talk about that funflation idea from the Reddit thread. It's such a great term for how expensive concerts and trips feel right now.
It really is.
Yeah,
And the
yeah.
discussion there was fascinating, trying to figure out why people are still spending on this stuff, despite all the headlines about the economy and, well, debt.
Yeah, that $1.13 trillion in credit card debt figure is staggering. So what was the thinking on Reddit?
Well, one idea that really popped up was this sense of, like, 2 different economic realities happening at once.
Like a split.
Kind of a sort of haves versus have-nots theory.
Sure.
For some people, maybe in certain jobs or financial situations, the money for travel and fun is still there, even if things cost more.
So almost parallel economies. And what about the idea that experiences are just valued more than stuff now? Is social media driving that?
That definitely came up, this idea that experiences have gained this deeper meaning, maybe as a way to combat feeling isolated or even financial insecurity.
Interesting take.
And yeah, marketing definitely pushes experiences hard.
Mm-hmm.
And being able to share it all online, that definitely shapes what we see as valuable, doesn't it?
For sure. It taps into wanting connection, making memories, maybe just escaping the grind for a bit.
Totally. And another angle from Reddit was the impact of people delaying or skipping having kids.
Ah, right. The argument being that frees up significant cash for travel and other things for some people.
Exactly. It's a big demographic shift, and it has real economic consequences. If you don't have those costs, you might have more disposable income for, oh, fun.
Makes sense. And did they talk about generational differences, like younger people prioritizing experiences?
Yeah, that came up too. This work to live idea, especially maybe for millennials and Gen Z. Less focus on the long-term grind, more on enjoying life now.
Why, though? Concerns about the future, climate change, retirement worries.
That was suggested. If the future feels uncertain, maybe you focus more on the present. Investing in yourself through experiences, finding meaning outside of just work stress.
But the Reddit thread wasn't all just spend, 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 was it? There were counter-arguments.
Yeah, definitely. People pointed out that some of this spending is on credit cards. That can mean trouble down the road.
Yeah, potential for future financial pain.
And there was debate, are people genuinely worse off, or are they just choosing to spend differently, shifting priorities away from material goods maybe?
It's complex.
Very. And some wondered if this whole focus on experience is partly just clever marketing, tapping into those feelings of loneliness or financial insecurity we mentioned.
Right. Okay, so bringing in the hard numbers, the BEA report on the U.S. travel and tourism satellite account, that gives us the bigger economic picture. What did it show for 2023?
So the BEA data showed that real output, actual volume for most tourism-related things went up in 2023.
Really? Even with higher prices?
Yeah. The biggest areas of growth were food and drinks, shopping while traveling, and hotels or other accommodations. Basically the core stuff.
Huh. And what about prices? Did they keep skyrocketing?
They went up, but actually slowed down a lot. Only 2.3% in 2023,
Yeah.
after a huge jump like 12.5% in 2022.
Okay, so still more expensive, but the rate of increase cooled off.
Exactly.
Right.
And the biggest price hikes were still in food and beverage, accommodations, and domestic flights. So yeah, people were spending more overall, even with those costs.
And jobs. Did the tourism sector add jobs?
It did, another positive sign. Direct tourism jobs grew significantly in 2023. Big gains again in food service, retail, and accommodations.
Okay.
And when you add in indirect jobs, the total tourism-related employment hit 10 million jobs in 2023.
Wow, 10 million. That's substantial.
It is. And the report showed the industry share of GDP was just over 3% in 2023. It highlights how important tourism is to the economy, even with, the ups and downs during the pandemic years.
Okay, so that's the recent picture. Now, looking forward, what does the AHLA's 2025 State of the Industry report tell us? What trends are they seeing?
Well, the HLA report, they did it with Accenture. It digs into some really interesting shifts in who is traveling and why.
Oh, yeah.
One big thing they call out is these new traveler archetypes. Basically, household structures are changing. More single-parent homes, more people living alone, more single adults, more same-sex couples, smaller families generally.
So the typical traveler isn't so typical anymore.
Exactly. The market is getting much broader, more diverse.
Which means hotels and travel companies need to adapt, right?
Yeah.
Cater to different needs.
Absolutely. And the report also breaks down generational priorities, which were kind of interesting.
How so?
They see millennials often looking for curated but cost-conscious trips. Gen Z, more about planned, identity-driven travel, maybe getting off the beaten path.
And older travelers.
More focused on bucket lists, relaxation. But interestingly, the report also found shared values across generations.
Like what?
Things like wanting real cultural immersion, sustainable travel options, and unique adventures. That seems pretty universal now.
That makes sense. Anything else on traveler types?
Yeah, a big rise in solo travel, especially women 65 and older. And get this, solo diners apparently spend significantly more.
Huh. Interesting.
And for Gen Z and millennials, travel is apparently a top financial priority.
So given all that, how does the industry adapt? What does the report suggest?
It really stresses using inspiration-driven marketing, moving beyond just ads to really understanding why people travel.
So more personalized.
Yeah, using data to figure out what resonates, like TikTok and Instagram for younger folks, maybe more traditional publications for luxury travelers, but always using real-time insights.
And partnerships.
Crucial, partnering with local businesses, tech providers to just make the whole experience better and reach more people.
Okay, another huge point in that AHLA report was about events. Sports entertainment seems like that's a massive driver now.
Oh, absolutely enormous. They call it the draw of events. The report talks about the huge economic boost from things like the Super Bowl in Vegas or the NCAA Final Four. Hotel rates, demand just went through the roof.
In looking ahead.
The projections are kind of mind-blowing. The 2026 FIFA World Cup, expected impact over $5 billion. The 2028 LA Olympics, maybe $11 billion, needing tons of hotel rooms.
Wow. And they mentioned the Taylor Swift effect, right?
They did. Her Eras tour wasn't just about ticket sales, it massively impacted local economies. Record hotel nights, jobs, spending in restaurants and shops in host cities.
Incredible. So cities are really leaning into this.
Definitely. Investing in stadiums, hotels, infrastructure to attract and handle these huge events, it's a major growth strategy.
Okay, one last big topic from AHLA, generative AI. How does that fit into the future of travel?
It's seen as having huge potential, especially for tackling information overload and maybe rebuilding trust.
Trust, how so?
Well, travelers are kind of drowning in online info, right? Fake reviews, scams. The FTC reported big losses to travel scams in 2023. People are getting wary.
Yeah, it's hard to know what to believe sometimes.
Exactly. So the idea is that generative AI could help by giving reliable, personalized recommendations, sifting through the noise.
So like a trustworthy travel advisor, but AI powered.
Kind of. People apparently want AI to give solid suggestions, maybe even surprise them with ideas, compare options across brands, handle bookings, and be available 24/7.
That does sound potentially useful if it works well.
That's the key, isn't it? If it works well and builds that trust. The overall outlook from AHLA seems to be, slow but steady growth in hotel rates, occupancy, revenue in 2025. The focus is on finding new revenue streams, using tech like AI smartly, and cashing in on those big events.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this all up. It feels like U.S. domestic travel is definitely growing, right? Especially in certain states. And travelers are looking for different things: experiences, safety, connection.
Yeah, but that growth is happening against this backdrop of economic complexity. You've got the funflation concerns, questions about debt,
Yeah.
shifting priorities towards experiences over things.
And the industry itself is clearly a big economic engine, jobs, GDP contribution. The future seems to involve adapting to all these changing traveler types, these demographic shifts.
Leveraging technology like AI and really capitalizing on the massive draw of major sports and entertainment events. It's a very nuanced picture.
It really is. You see the enthusiasm for travel, for making memories, but it's tangled up with economic pressures and this real need for the industry to innovate and adapt.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So for you listening, as you think about all these trends, maybe consider how your own travel plans or preferences might shift in the next few years. Are you leaning more into those big experiences, or maybe focusing more on saving, or trying to find, that balance somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, it's definitely something to think about.
We encourage you to keep mulling over these ideas, maybe even go back to some of those sources for your own deeper dive. Thanks for joining us today.